Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to DSPsports. I'm Don Stevens, and with me is David Beard. How you doing, David?
Great, Don. How you doing today?
I'm doing supercalifragilisticexpialidocious awesome because I saw two great playoff games this last weekend.
I think we saw two great second halves. The first half would put me to sleep.
I agree. The first halves of both the games were, but I'm just going to take them as wholes. When I make a blanket statement like that, for example, when I watch a baseball game and there's absolutely nothing but 8 innings of boredom, and then someone hits a grand slam in the 9th inning, it becomes an awesome baseball game.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so now we've got two teams that from the beginning we didn't necessarily pick going into the Super Bowl. And I'm sure a lot of people are interested in what our picks are for the Super Bowl. Should we tell them today, Dave, or should we make them wait until next week?
Well, I think we should probably make them wait till next week just in case, we have a week to think about it. And if we change our mind, then this would be kind of a wasteful week to pick.
You're right. I agree 100%. Plus, we've got the most important game of the year coming up, the Pro Bowl.
If you say so.
Do you hear crickets? The Pro Bowl, which, by the way, as I said last year, and I'll say it again this year, the Pro Bowl before the Super Bowl is dumb as dirt.
I agree, especially when it's in Hawaii. It just seems like too much maintenance.
It does, and I think you made the comment last week that they all going to have to fly out there, and they're all going to have to fly back in such a short period of time for setup. Now, I'm sure they've got, a couple extra guys that, can work in one place while other people are doing things in another. I mean, the NFL has how many games a week, but, I mean, it's just...
Well, not even that, Dom, but the Senior Bowl, which is all the College Bowl, all the NFL teams are at the Senior Bowl in... Huntsville, I believe somewhere in Alabama. But and that was the 24th, and they were there the 24th, 25th, and just to evaluate the players. Then all these people flew to Hawaii and made it there on Wednesday or Thursday. So now they're in Hawaii until Monday, and then they're all going to fly to Dallas. It's like, it's a cluster.
Yeah. And that in itself seems like an atrocity. But I'll get to the next atrocity in a minute. What we have here is it's the Pro Bowl. It's a game that doesn't count. I understand the way that football wants to do it. See, baseball, you got your All-Star game right in the middle, so you've got your star players getting ready to get injured right in the middle of the season. The football wants to wait to the end of the season so that they don't have that problem, and I think that's part of the reasons why they do what they do. But the fact remains is that having it before the Super Bowl, we're not going to see some of the All-Stars play.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think because of the sport and because of how dangerous it is, and because they could get hurt, football may just want to consider not even having a Pro Bowl.
Well, that may be an option to look into. The next thing I want to talk about when it comes to the Super Bowl is the lack of cheerleaders this year.
There's no cheerleaders at the Super Bowl?
There will be no cheerleaders. Green Bay does not have a pro cheerleading squad, and neither do the Steelers.
Well, I know why Green Bay doesn't. You know why?
Please tell me.
There's not one good-looking girl in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Oh, that's not be so mean to Green Bay. I defended Green Bay on DSPsports.
Yes.
But apparently they have college teams and high school teams come in their own uniforms and cheer for every game instead of having their own professional squad. And apparently one of the reasons why the Steelers may not have their own cheerleading squad is our next topic. We've got the quarterback of the Steelers going to the Super Bowl for his third ring, and we have an issue with him. David, what is that issue with Ben Roethlisberger?
Well, the guy has never been proved guilty of doing anything, and so I'm not going to definitely go out there and flatly accuse him of anything. But I personally have a problem with him because I do not like the way that he carries himself as a professional man who has millions of dollars. I mean, and regardless of what he did or didn't do in a bar bathroom with a girl, he did it. And the guy doesn't have very much respect for women. Apparently doesn't have very much respect for himself. And I have a hard time rooting for a guy who acts like that. He acts like a monster. He acts like he's entitled. He's narcissistic. And it just makes me sick.
Interesting. No, I understand where you're coming from. I think athletes in general, from all sports across the board, tend to have this problem. Maybe not in general. Maybe that's unfair. But I think we see it a lot, that athletes have this problem respecting people just in general sometimes. And I think maybe it's the money that makes that happen, and the whole environment and who they surround themselves with.
And I think I actually have a more respect for somebody like Michael Vick, and I'm a dog lover, but I think he's actually genuinely remorseful. Like, you could see it. He was young, he made mistakes, and I'll never forgive him for brutally killing dogs, but I can see the remorse there. And with Ben Roethlisberger, it's like he's annoyed that he got suspended and he did nothing wrong, and he just felt entitled. Whereas you could tell with Vick, he is really sorry, and he says it all the time. So it's easier for me to get behind somebody like Vic, who wants a second chance, than it is to get behind somebody like Ben Roethlisberger, who just doesn't care.
Well, that is a legitimate concern for a sports fan. That maybe you're out there and you're trying to decide what team that you want to root for, and maybe you don't know, you're not connected to the Steelers and you're not connected to Green Bay, and you've got to make a decision, and you don't know how. And one of the ways that I've always found to be a legitimate way, whether or not you're going to support a team or not, is what is the douchebag factor of the people on that team. And I think that is a completely legitimate a viewpoint to come from. Now, maybe if you're a Steelers fan and you live in Pennsylvania and that whole area, you're going to support your team no matter what, because there are other people on that team. And they deserve support. But that is something that I think is legitimate to take into effect, whether or not you're going to be a fan of a team. If you can't stand the quarterback, then that makes sense. That makes perfectly good sense. What's going on? What's changing in sports other than football, David?
Well, I was looking at the NASCAR points thing, and for a fan of NASCAR for the past 5 years, I've had a hard time trying to grip how they do this point system, because it's all over the place, and you see they have hundreds and thousands of points. You don't know how they got them. So what they're doing this year is a pretty simple process. So 43 cars enter each race, and so there's 43 points. So if you win, you get 43 points. If you come in, if you win, you get 43 points, and then if you come in last place, you get a point or whatever. So, but what they're saying is now they're going to do, instead of doing all that 5 points for leading a lap, 5 points for winning, 5 points, it's only going to be 3 points extra for winning and a point for leading. Anyways, it's much simpler than it used to be, which is all over the place. So, and it makes sense. And I don't even think they really even need to chase anymore with this new format, because it's very easy.
Well, I can see how it's easier compared to the way it used to be, but I still think it's a mess. I still think it's a mess, even with the points the way they are. There are other changes that are going on in NASCAR, too. Drivers are going to have to pick a series to compete for a championship on. There'll be none of this Cup regulars going down to the National Series and racing for a championship there. They've got to pick the league that they want their championship in.
And I think that's stupid.
Well, I think it's great. I think that it would be ridiculous to let Albert Pujols go on down and play a AAA ball in order for your AAA team to win a title while he's still playing for the Cardinals.
But then the minor league series there, whatever it's called now, it used to be called the Busch or Nationwide. No one's going to watch it.
I used to watch it before the Cup guys started winning championships. As a matter of fact, I stopped watching the Busch series that became the Nationwide series after Kyle Busch and all those guys continuously started running for championship races. That's when I stopped watching the Busch series. It was like, go ahead.
But besides the top drivers in NASCAR who go down there and do the nationwide, I don't think I could name one driver besides Danica Patrick.
And that's because all the top drivers are going down there, and no one is getting the opportunity to rise and become a young new star that wins championships and maybe even dominates. Because you've got all these guys from the major leagues going down to the minors, and it's hurting. I believe it's hurting the series.
I think what you're saying is right, but I think as a company, it's a bad decision.
Well, I think if I'm right, in the long run, as a company, it should pay off.
They might lose the series in the short run, though.
Well, I mean, you may see some dips, but these guys can still race. These guys can still race in the lower series. They can still race in the truck series, in the camper series, and in the nationwide series. But they just can't race for championships. So you can still see your guys running. You're just not going to see them running for championships. And I think personally that's fair. There's also
cool. That's cool if they're still there and like not every race, but they kind of, they're not there for every race, but they still come from races from time to time. Then I'm cool with that.
Just understand that if it were up to me, they wouldn't be allowed to race at all. But I think this is an interesting compromise. There's a new qualifying procedure. The qualifying order will be set based on the slowest to fastest practice speeds. There's an inclement weather qualifying that they've kind of solidified that I'm not going to get into. The tire rules are different. Instead of getting 5 sets, instead of getting 6 sets, they're going to get 5. They've got to return so many of it. I've never understood the NASCAR tire rule. I've never understood why the race teams can't just buy their tires flat out. It makes no sense to me. They're going to eliminate the canned fuel. There's a closed-loop fueling system, so now you don't have a guy out there with a giant can of explosive fuel.
How are they going to put the gas in?
Once we find out, we'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah. And, of course, they're continuing to change the car. Dave, when it comes down to it, I'm still not super excited about this next season, but I'm going to give it a chance.
And you know what? I was reading, too, about how everybody, including Rick Hendricks, who's probably the most popular owner in the sport, wants them to shorten the season because it's too long, and NFL is a problem, and NASCAR just will not do it because they have, which is kind of honorable, they have gentlemen shakes with several tracks giving them 2 races a year, and these shakes, these handshakes are from 40 or was it 20 years ago, so they honor them. That's why they're never going to shorten it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just the sad fact of the matter. Here's the other thing, and I know NASCAR's going to end up taking the rest of the show here, and that's fine, but here's another problem I have, and it's with the chase, and they didn't do any. They changed the chase to where people win, they could get in on a wild card or something, and that's fine. My problem with the chase is that these guys, the 12 that are racing to win the championship, have got to race all these people that aren't in the playoffs, basically. And that would be like saying, all right, St. Louis, you're playing New York in the World Series, but you're also going to have to play Boston, and you're also going to have to play in Boston, and New York's also going to have to play Chicago. Now, neither of them can win the championship, but they could win they could win the games, and one of the two of you are going to win the championship, though you may not actually win any of the games in the World Series. And now we're all confused.
No, it makes sense, but they're never going to, I think we talked about this before, they're never going to eliminate teams just because of sponsorship.
Yeah, I know, and that kind of takes away a lot of the true awesomeness of a playoff out of it.
Yeah, but too, like, don't you think it would be boring if the last race of the year would be, say, Harvick against Jimmy Johnson and nobody else?
No, not at all. The 12 would race all the way to the end because they made the final. They made the chase. The 12 that made the chase. Absolutely.
See, if that was the case, I'd open the chase up a little bit more to like 20, just to have some more cars in there.
Sure, absolutely. It would make more sense. It would be more of a playoff and less of convoluted, nonsensical. Everyone's in there racing. No one knows who's racing for the win, who's racing for this, who's racing for that, whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, this is DSP Sports.